The Elder Scrolls is a wonderful world, and there are a lot of stories that can be told therein. I wanted to provide some prompts for those stories. While I imagine these as being used in a tabletop role playing game, and the language I use will be geared towards that angle, they could certainly be used in a piece of creative writing instead. Much of the information that I present will be incomplete. This is to allow more creativity. I'm presenting these as prompts, after all. Finally, I wanted to provide a variety of different types of prompts for different types of tabletop games. First, Breakout of Blackrose. The type is a short prison breakout adventure, probably 2 or 3 gameplay sessions. The time, the Third Era 400 to 432. After the Imperial Simulacrum, but during the reign of Uriel Septim the Seventh and before the Oblivion Crisis. Circa 432, there was a mass breakout of Blackrose Prison. Perhaps the player's involvement was the catalyst for that. The place is Blackrose Prison, Argonia. A day's travel south from the city of the same name, Blackrose Prison is an oubliette so dark it contends with the murk and mire of southern Argonia it is surrounded by. It is filled with the co-conspirators of Jagar Tharn, war criminals, political prisoners, and violent madmen all alike. The goal? One of the political prisoners being held in Blackrose Prison has, or is suspected to have, a piece of information that the Emperor is convinced is necessary. The Empire is in a tenuous state in the aftermath of the Imperial Simulacrum and the many wars that occurred therein, and with portents of darker things to come, the Emperor needs everything he can use to reconsolidate his power base. As a staunch opponent of imperial rule, this prisoner would not freely give this information, even with promise of a pardon, and torture has been ineffective. The party has been tasked by the Blades, the Emperor's secret police force, to infiltrate Blackrose Prison, find the target, and exfiltrate with the target in tow. They are to convince the target that they have come to aid the prisoner in their political movement, earn their trust, and then get the information that is desired. After the party has the information, they are to kill the target and report their findings. The challenges. Firstly, Black Marsh is a famously inhospitable place. While Blackrose Prison is merely a day's travel from a major city, it's a day's travel in Argonia. The wildlife is less than pleasant, the risk of disease is great, and the natives are unhelpful at best. Secondly, of course, the players need to infiltrate a prison. There are many ways this can be done, though a frontal assault is highly discouraged. The guards at this prison are likely well trained by the simple fact that they are guarding a prison in the middle of nowhere. Add to that many of the prisoners being dangerous. Remember that the target won't be willing to trust the players if they simply got them a pardon, and the guards are probably not going to be willing to hear them out either. The prisoners here don't get pardoned. This would make a social approach very difficult, though perhaps not impossible. The prisoners within the prison could very easily pose a threat to the party as well. Thirdly, exfiltration. Getting out of the prison can easily be an additional challenge on top of getting into it, and now the party has a target who may cause additional problems. They, for example, may refuse to go with the party if they don't also spring one of their political allies or friends. They may have been deformed for all the torture they've gone through and unable to move quickly or quietly. The target may simply believe that all of this is far too suspect and not trust the party until they can convince the target to go with them. The party could, of course, knock them unconscious and take them by force, but that will mean the party has to drag a body with them while exfiltrating, and that will likely make it harder to get the target to cooperate afterwards. Fourthly, earning the target's trust and getting the information from them. This may or may not require additional favors after exfiltrating them from the prison, perhaps a secondary quest to go on. Options. There are many different options that this premise can allow for. Both the game master as well as the party has a number of different directions this story can go in. I'll start with the options for the game master. Firstly, the political prisoner is intentionally a vague character. This character has no predetermined race, gender, or background. This prisoner can have whatever sorts of belief the game master wishes them to have. A few examples would be a member of the Mythic Dawn cult, a proto-communist or proto-liberal revolutionary, or a member of the nascent Thalmor party, or proto-Anselil. Secondly, the piece of information that this political prisoner has is also intentionally vague. It could really be anything, or it could be nothing at all. It would likely be related to whatever sort of political ideology they hold, particularly in reference to any allies they may have. If, for example, the prisoner was a member of the Mythic Dawn cult, they may have some sort of piece of information about Mankar Cameron. Thirdly, and most obviously, the specifics of all the aforementioned challenges are, well, unspecified. I can't tell you what kind of game your players would like to play, so I can't tell you what all the specifics of those challenges would be. If your players like doing research and preparing, then make the act of traveling to and away from the prison more challenging. Make your players say they brought potions of water breathing and water walking and cure disease with them, for example. If the players wouldn't like that sort of challenge, then just tell them that they have a stock of those potions that they can bring along. If your players like heavy combat, then have an altercation with the guards or prisoners, or both, within the prison, and maybe a few alligators or whatever on the way to and from. In fact, given that there will be the party, the guards, and the prisoners, you have a pretty easy option for a three-way combat, which are usually kind of rare in tabletop role-playing games, at least in my experience. I'm going to clarify that for each of these prompts, the challenges I provide are fundamentally up to the game master, and they are well within their right to choose which challenges they want to emphasize and which ones they want to de-emphasize. Options for the players will, of course, include their approach to infiltration and exfiltration of the prison. There are also some interesting moral concerns. Will the players feel right in killing the prisoner after getting the information, especially if the prisoner helped them in some significant way during the escape? Perhaps the players might actually be convinced of the prisoner's political views, especially if trust is slow to earn and they spend a lot of time with the prisoner. If the players do find themselves agreeing more and more with the prisoner, then that could be a radical shift in the direction of the campaign. Additionally, there's something very important to keep in mind. Spoilers for the midway point of the story of Morrowind. Caius Casades is recalled to the Imperial City, and he says something very interesting when he tells the player that. Caius Casades, a high-ranking member of the Blades, says that, quote, I thought about refusing the recall, but they have members of my family back in the capital. Think about the ramifications of that and whether the players might be in a similar situation. Miscellaneous. I imagine that this is a relatively short story, probably best as a 2 to 3 game session adventure. It seems too large to me for an average playgroup to comfortably do as a one-shot, and I think that more than 3 sessions would likely be excessive. A fourth might be warranted, however. I do think that this story makes the most sense if this is not the first mission that the party has done for the Blades. This is likely a story that only makes sense if the players are already relatively experienced, whether this is another adventure added to an existing campaign, or the experience is written into the party's backgrounds. My representation of the Blades here is informed primarily by Arena, Daggerfall, and Morrowind. In Oblivion and Skyrim, the role of the Blades is severely changed as far as the player's perception of them is concerned. In Arena, the Blades are a mysterious group of highly skilled warriors that doesn't appear to have any specific allegiance. In Daggerfall and Morrowind, the Blades are much more centered in the storytelling, and those games reveal that the Blades are much more a network of spies, though in Daggerfall there are warriors as well. I think that given these two pieces of information, a secret police force is the best description of what the Blades are in those 3 games. In Oblivion, the role of the Blades shifts into acting as the bodyguards of the Emperor. While obviously these are compatible tasks, the more subtle arts the Blades engage in the first 3 games are incredibly muted in Oblivion, with only a few hints here and there at best. Skyrim actually shifts the Blades back more towards how they were in the first 3 games, but then goes off and gives them yet another role of being dragon slayers. Okay, sure. The lore of this adventure, I think, is very believable, so long as whatever piece of information the political prisoner has is important but not world shattering. This is easily an event that could occur within the established lore of the Elder Scrolls and simply not be recorded anywhere. Number 2, Playing Houses. Disclaimer, the name Playing Houses is that of a forum-based RP campaign that is considered an unofficial piece of lore. While the generalities of the events of that campaign have been canonized, the specifics have not. The name is not my own. The type, this is a political campaign. It's likely going to be 8 or more gameplay sessions. The time is the Third Era, year 430. In the year 430 of the Third Era, King Hlalu Helseth outlawed slavery in Morrowind, causing alliances to be drawn and civil war unleashed upon the province. The events of the game Morrowind are recent memory, that game taking place in 427. The place, Mournhold, the capital of Morrowind. From his seat of power in Mournhold, King Helseth of Great House Hlaalu has solidified his alliance between his house and Great House Dres. The great houses of Indoril and Redoran are in open rebellion in an effort to maintain the institution of slavery in specific and conservative Dunmer culture in general. Great House Telvanni is apparently uninterested in this conflict and is, perhaps unsurprisingly, keeping to themselves. The goal. Each player should decide which side of the conflict they are truly on. The goal for each player will be to help their respective side in a game of political maneuvering in the court of King Helseth, whether that be to destabilize the court and send intelligence to House Indoril or Redoran, or to root out spies on behalf of the king. Or perhaps a given character has their own motivations. Challenges. King Hlaalu Helseth is a shrewd, manipulative, lying sociopath. In short, he's an excellent king. Whether any given person is truly on his side or not, he will be suspicious of everyone, and more than willing to make an example of anyone. There is no game more dangerous than politics. The war being waged is a laughing matter compared to the battle in the court. Poisons, curses, knives between the ribs, inconvenient falls, and snakes who are far from home are all very likely to make their appearance. These are also tools the players can employ, of course. The players maintaining their good standings in Helseth's court is their top priority. That certainly includes maintaining their cover and plausible deniability, even if they truly are on Helseth's side. Options. Of course, whether the players are royalists or rebels is an immensely important choice. There are three ways that I see for this choice to be made. Firstly, there's a collective choice. Going in, the players decide whether they want to all play royalists or rebels. Secondly, an individual choice. Each player decides what they wish to play and announces that decision before the gameplay sessions. Of course, if players make opposing decisions, good role players will know not to metagame. Thirdly, for a truly immersive experience, is the secret choice. Each player chooses in secret where their loyalties lie. Of course, the game master should be made aware of each player's loyalties. Each player would likely have their own ulterior motives aside from aiding their chosen faction. What those other motivations are could be anything. Each player should definitely have some motivation to betray the side they originally held loyalty for. Perhaps seeing the cruelty of King Helseth makes a player decide to turn rebel. Perhaps Helseth blackmails a spy into being a double agent. Miscellaneous. This game could really be of any length, but I think that it would probably be best if it were in the 8 to 12 gameplay session range. There needs to be time for political maneuverings to be initiated and then realized, and there needs to be time for twists and turns in the plot, but too long, and people might get tired. Political games are very difficult to run and require a lot of preparation. Therefore, this is very much the least fleshed out prompt. The truth is, there could be anything going on in this time period. Canonically, King Helseth and the Royalist faction are the victors in this conflict, but that certainly doesn't mean that very damaging things didn't happen during the conflict. Of course, Coda dictates the canon is subjective, so if you want to kill Helseth and throw Morrowind into even further chaos, be my guest. Number 3. The Road of Bthzuardnch. The type is a mega dungeon or campaign, probably 12 or more gameplay sessions. The time? Any time will work, but perhaps not during the Oblivion Crisis. The place is Western Mainland Morrowind, the Velothi Mountains, the Road of Bthzuardnch, Underground, Hammerfell, Skyrim. The Road of Bthzuardnch is a recently discovered Dwemer mega highway that spans all the way from the Velothi Mountains to just shy of Stros M'Kai. It connects many heretofore undiscovered cities. The goal is to enter the Road of Bthzuardnch, plunder its treasures, learn its secrets, and compete or cooperate with the other parties of adventures with the same goal in mind. Keep in mind that smuggling dwarven artifacts is outlawed by the Empire, so the party will need to find a good way of offloading any interesting pieces, though no one will mind them selling normal scrap. Currently, only one entrance is known, though evidence indicates that there are, or at least should be, many others dotted about the old realm of the dwarves. Mapping out the entire road would be an incredible feat, but could be very profitable. Challenges. Navigation can be a serious challenge in an environment that may be unfamiliar. Traveling in an underground environs will be difficult without the help of the sun, and it may be difficult to tell how much time has passed for the same reason. The sameness of Dwemer ruins may also lend to a lack of notable landmarks and distinguishing features, further increasing navigational challenge. This is an unspoilt dwarven ruin, and many other adventurers are sure to be exploring the place and finding their fortune there as well as the party. Cooperating with them may prove fruitful, but so may competing. All sorts of enemies are likely to be around. Dwemer constructs are well known to work thousands of years after the dwarves disappeared, and many would likely be active here, perhaps many more than in most dwarven ruins, as there haven't been any adventures in here before the entrance was recently discovered. Falmer are also found in the Dwemer ruins of Skyrim, as are their Chaurus pets. Who knows how many caves may be reached via the Road of Bthzuardnch and what might live in those caves. The Dwemer were anything but straightforward, despite their efficiency, logic, and reason. All sorts of puzzles are sure to make their appearance both on the road and in the dwarven cities it connects to. Another challenge would simply be carrying all of the loot that the party may come across. Determining what the party should take with them or leave behind can be difficult when so much in the ruins is hard to appraise. Selling valuable artifacts is A, illegal, and B, requires connections. Options. The Road of Bthzuardnch is left intentionally undefined, which allows the game master to come up with their own meaning. In addition, it is the Road of Bthzuardnch rather than the Road to Bthzuardnch. If it were the Road to, that would heavily imply that Bthzuardnch is a place, but it being the Road of allows Bthzuardnch to be any sort of noun, really. Bthzuardnch could be a place, but it could also be the king that started the construction project, or a time period, or even the material out of which the road is made. While the length of the road is given, its path is certainly not, nor are its connections to the surface or already known Dwemer ruins. The exact nature of this mega highway is also not given. Perhaps there are rails along the road for unknown purposes, or strange contraptions the likes of which have never been seen. There are Dwemer cities that were inaccessible prior to the discovery of the Road of Bthzuardnch. The number and names of these cities are undetermined. Additionally, it could be the case that these cities are of a different time period to the ones that we see in the games, perhaps even having distinct architectural styles or artistic motifs. The players may have their own motives for exploring the road. Some may wish to learn as much as they can about dwarven culture and language. Others may desire to learn all they can about the animunculi that they constructed. Others still may desire to learn as much as they can of the lost magics of the dwarves. Of course, there's plenty of loot to be had in an unspoiled ruin, be that advanced weaponry and equipment, or simply gold. Miscellaneous. This is the sort of premise that can easily make a super long campaign. The Road of Bthzuardnch itself could easily be described as a mega dungeon. Mega dungeons can easily be entire campaigns in and of themselves. I do not think that this exact premise is well suited to a short story, though a similar premise of a smaller scope, namely a single previously undiscovered ruin, could make a shorter adventure. One of the main concerns with this premise is the incompatibility of it with the lore as it exists. The discovery of this road would have certainly been mentioned in one of the games if it had occurred in that game's past. Of course, this discovery could occur in the future of all of the games, that is to say, after the year 4th era 205 or so. That's a very large limitation on the time period in which this story could take place. That being said, if you don't mind this sort of addition to the lore, feel free to have the story take place whenever you like. I strongly believe that there should be a singular, incredibly important secret hidden within the Road of Bthzuardnch, with several pieces of foreshadowing scattered about the place. This could be a Dwemer animunculi, the likes of which has never been seen in the games before, a previously unknown metal alloy, even harder and more durable than normal dwarven metal, or a singularly massive city that must have been the seat of an empire even more lost to time than the dwarves already are. This allows for a main goal for the party to work towards, uncovering that secret. Of course, there can be plenty of smaller secrets as well. Number 4. Thrassian Concerns. This is a story arc, perhaps in the 5 to 8 gameplay session range. The time is the 4th era, 1 to 20. It's after the Oblivion Crisis, but before the Thalmor sees power in the Somerset Isles. The place is the Abyssinian Sea and Sea of Pearls. The Abyssinian Sea is the ocean that surrounds western Tamriel, Hammerfell, Valenwood, and the Somerset Isles. Further to the west of the Abyssinian is the Sea of Pearls, which encompasses the primary location of concern, Thrass. The goal. 2,000 years ago, the vile Slode and their coral kingdom of Thrass unleashed a plague upon Tamriel, the likes of which had never been seen. In the centuries that followed, half of Tamriel's population had died of the disease. In response, the largest allied navy in Tamrielic history, the All Flags Navy, launched a punitive assault against the Slode, sinking their entire kingdom into the water. But the Slode survived, being aquatic, and have gradually rebuilt their kingdom. While the Slode, in fear of further retributive action, have made no such aggression since, the Empire is severely weakened due to the recent Oblivion Crisis, and some are concerned that this uneasy truce may soon be broken. The party is tasked to investigate the Slode and learn whatever they can. Challenges. The challenges in sailing are many. Sea monsters, pirates, the Slode, and inclement weather alike all pose serious threats to the safety of the party in merely traveling to and from Thrass. Furthermore, an area between the Abyssinian and the Sea of Pearls, near and perhaps surrounding Thrass, known as the Graven Deep, is infamous for ships that sail its waters never returning. The Slode, who are generally quite powerful in the arcane arts, and necromancy in particular, are hostile to outsiders at best. They are unlikely to simply allow a party of adventurers to investigate their kingdom as the party likes, and far more likely to simply take the party as slaves. This could, however, mark an opportunity of its own. Some Slode, however, are sure to be uninterested in hiding the secrets of their kingdom at large, and more than willing to give aid to the party, assuming they could advance their own interests by doing so, of course. The Oblivion Crisis is recent memory for the denizens of Tamriel. Prices of goods and services will be high for low supply and high demand. Finding a crew of sailors might be a feat in and of itself for the party to accomplish. All that besides, who knows if there are still any forces of Marin's Dagon trapped on Mundus. Politically speaking, the Thalmor are on the rise in this time period, and while the Somerset Isles are still part of the Empire, it seems likely that foreigners would be less welcome in the Isles, especially in Alinor itself, the closest major port to the areas the party would be exploring. Options. Obviously, the Slode are up to something. Whether that thing is so significant as the engineering of a second Thrassian plague is up to the storyteller. If it is to that degree of significance, there needs to be a good reason a relatively small group of people could thwart such a plot. Or, if maintaining continuity with the mainline Elder Scrolls universe is not a primary concern, a means by which some larger retributive action, a second All Flags Navy for instance, can be mounted, must be devised. The means by which the party can investigate the Slode is unspecified. Perhaps they get captured as slaves, which allows them access into deeper parts of Thrass. Perhaps they find a Slode collaborator, dealing with the consequences of bargaining with one of the Slode. Perhaps the party is simply specialized in stealth operations and armed with powerful magic for that purpose. Miscellaneous. Relatively little is known of the Slode. This means that the Game Master has more freedom to create, but fewer basics to go on. What little is known of the Slode, however, is very dark. Their society is really messed up, including, as mentioned earlier, them being slavers and necromancers. Some people may simply not want to engage in that sort of campaign. Finally, a Tournament of 10 Bloods. This is a single arena fighting adventure. It could be one gameplay session or more, depending on the speed at which combats occur. The time is any time. This can occur at any time period. The place is Boethia Stadium. Boethia Stadium is a small realm of Boethia where she holds her tournaments. It is a realm of stormy skies and seas of lava. The goal? The Tournament of 10 Bloods is a competition that Boethia puts on occasion when she is seeking a champion. Competitors of 10 different races of Tamriel are brought in to battle it out amongst one another. This time is a bit different, however, as this one's a team competition. The players are all supplicants of Boethia, seeking her favor, and are all of the same race, thus competing as a team. Of course, Boethia will only choose a single chosen one, so, as is befitting of the Prince of Plots, the winning team will have to turn on one another to truly show their devotion to the Queen of Shadows. Challenges. Of course, this is a tournament. This story is a fundamentally combat focused one. The combatants that the party faces will be, by the nature of the tournament, intelligent and diverse opponents. The party will need to be ready for anything. Boethia Stadium is an inhospitable place, and environmental hazards are sure to occur. Incredible temperatures, lava erupting from the ground, and even lightning are all possible. If there's any downtime before or between fights, supplicants of Boethia are more than likely to engage or attempt to engage in sabotage. Options. The Tournament of Ten Bloods is the Boethia Daedric quest in Oblivion, and we can see one of them occur during that quest. However, there is no reason I can see to assume that this would be the only such tournament, or that all of the tournaments of this kind would be organized in the same way as that one. As such, the tournament can be organized in whatever way the game master likes. The primary question to be answered is that of the organizational structure. Perhaps all of the teams share some sort of common space before the tournament, in which the only rule is not to get caught, or perhaps they're all separated. Perhaps the tournament needn't be of 10 bloods, and may be of more or fewer. Perhaps each team is paired off in a proper tournament style, or perhaps they are all unleashed into a single arena. Whatever the game master feels will be the most interesting, though the logistics of a game master running a large combat of all the teams may be difficult to manage. The races of Tamriel are often pigeonholed based on in-game statistics. Bretons, for example, in each game have more statistical bonuses towards magic and fewer towards stealth. This should likely be kept in mind while planning this game. To grant the players most diversity in class archetype options, a race like Argonian or Dunmer could be chosen. It can, however, also be interesting to choose one of those races that has statistical bonuses that lean heavily towards one archetype or another. This point, however, is the most game system dependent point in all of these prompts. A game system that doesn't have predetermined statistical bonuses based on race/species/ancestry, for example, would be unaffected. I do feel the need to mention that there is an unofficial Elder Scrolls tabletop role-playing game system. While I've not played it, it looks solid enough from my reading through it. While I personally think that it is most likely that Boethia would demand the winning team turn on each other to earn her favor, if the players and game master would desire the campaign to continue, perhaps some other ending could be worked out. Miscellaneous. Ideally, I think this would be a single gameplay session adventure, but the speed at which combats are resolved may prove a challenge for this goal. Depending on the organizational structure the game master devises for this tournament, the number of gameplay sessions required will change. A game master should keep their intended session number in mind while designing that organizational structure. Fundamentally, this is just a story about arena fighting. Such a story could really be told in any setting. In fact, arena fighting is a thing that occurs within the setting of the Elder Scrolls. I wanted to use this particular arena fight to solidify the connection with the Elder Scrolls setting in specific. Well, that's all I have. This was a bit of a different video than normal, but I had the idea and I wanted to go through with it. I hope that one of these prompts sparked a creative energy in somebody. If you ever end up using one of these prompts to design an adventure for a tabletop role-playing game, please let me know how it went. And if you used one of these prompts to write a short story, please let me know that too. I'd love to be able to read it. I'll actually leave a link in my Discord in the description if you'd like to share it with me. I'd very much appreciate that. I really do think that the Elder Scrolls is a fascinating setting and deserves to have more people creating within it. Anyway, if you watched this whole video, thank you very much.